We have officially been living in our bus for 1 whole year. We moved in January of 2021, so now January of 2022 has been 1 full year of bus living.
So it's been a year. We did a 2-month update, and now we're ready to do a 1-year update. A lot has happened. We'll talk about what broke, what needed to be fixed, or things we just wanted to change. And we have a lot to catch you up on, so let's get right into it.
Right across this country, into the starlight, 12,000 miles, turn back, do it again. No destination, it's just a journey. You were my lover and friend.
First things first, let's address the biggest thing, arguably the most scarring and traumatic event of the year.
Yeah, what would that be?
Guys, I destroyed our solar panels.
She said it, not me.
Drew was not even there. He wasn't involved. I got into the bus. I did not look to see if our solar slide was out. We don't have any kind of indicator or anything. And I drove a very short distance. It was about a 7 to 10 minute drive, but I did get up to full speed, 60 miles per hour during that time, which means it was just enough time for that solar slide to bend itself completely backwards over the bus, smashing not only the 2 solar panels on the slide, but also the solar panel behind it. So we were down 3 panels in the middle of the summer when we were running our AC. This was a devastating experience to turn around and see the bus with the solar slide bent over top of the rest of the panels. Heartbreaking. Absolutely horrible. Do not recommend.
There you go. It's minus 600 watts of solar. It was like, I couldn't even process it. I just was like, okay. And also, we were just so busy with the other bus. It sat that way for like 4 months.
It was 3 panels plus the giant industrial, super heavy-duty drawer slides. So we were down almost $1,000 in equipment.
Oh, yeah.
And we did not have that money to just shell out in that moment. We also did not have the time to redo it. So basically, my dad and I just went up there with a wrench and just took the whole slide off of the roof rack. And we just went without those 3 panels for months until we finished our last bus build and then could get back to it. What you're seeing right now is the footage of us reinstalling our solar slide, which is heartbreaking, but we were very excited to get it back on the bus, get our 3 solar panels back. We reordered the solar panels, reordered the drawer slides, bolted everything back in. It wasn't too intense of a process to redo it, but it's unfortunate.
It did take longer than I thought.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, we'll knock this out in a day. It took me a couple days. Now we got our slide back up here. It's time to put the other panels above there and secure them into the unistrut.
That is the saga of the solar slide. Now that we went through this whole experience, we realized that we need something hanging from the front of the solar slide. So when it's out, we hung a caution tape ribbon from the front of it so that you cannot drive off without seeing that hanging right in front of your vision. So hopefully that will save this from happening again, because it was truly tragic and heartbreaking, and we would love for that to not happen again.
Yeah.
So hopefully solar slide number 2 will be the final slide.
That sort of leads us to the next major problem we had to kind of work out. When you build a battery from cells, you need to make sure the cells are matched and balanced with internal resistance and capacity. When you order them, places are supposed to do this. Some are better than others. Sometimes you don't know what you're getting with these cells. Without getting too crazy into it, we have 200 amp hour cells. And when we were finishing our bus, we kind of were getting to a time crunch, and I did not have time to go through and capacity test each individual cell. So assumed they were pretty close, balanced them, and put it together and got on the road. One night we woke up to the inverter alarm beeping, because what happened was one or more of the cells was actually not 200 amp hours of capacity. Say it was maybe 170 or something. So as soon as that reaches the low end of its operating voltage, it's going to fall off a cliff. That's sort of how battery power works. It's almost like a waterfall. It pushes all of it till there's nothing left. And as soon as that happens, it drags down everything else because it's all trying to equalize. Fortunately with cells, if that happens, you can pull it apart, use the cells that are still at the good operating voltage, and rebuild a smaller pack until you can replace the damaged or under capacity cell. So I was able to get us power, get us back online within the day, which is a really nice thing. But yeah, I had to weed out these kind of not truly full rated cells.
That is kind of the benefit of building from cells, is that if this does happen and some of the cells fail, you can pull them and rebuild your battery bank, which is something you're not necessarily able to do if you buy pre-built packaged batteries.
So a pre-built battery, it's essentially the same thing. It's made up of cells that are inside this box with the BMS. Everything's already done. If one of those cells fails, or they did a bad job balancing and one of them isn't pulling full capacity, you're going to have to wait until you can get a full replacement battery. There's a few packs like the SOKs where you can actually pull them apart and replace an individual cell, but you would need to have that on hand. You're not driving to Walmart and picking up a battery cell. They're not readily available like that. Usually you don't have those problems if you're getting a good built battery from a reputable company, but it still does happen. Cells do still fail, and sometimes things happen. So you're going to have to wait, and that's going to be even more of a headache because you're going to probably have to order something online and then wait for it to come and have potentially no power until that happens. So, there's the trade-offs, but it is nice having the flexibility of I can just build a new pack right away. So long story short, we went from 600 to 400 to 200, weeded out all the bad cells, and now we actually have 800 amp hours, which is a lot.
Fingers crossed they're all balanced, they're good to go. So far, so good. We haven't had any issues with them since we upgraded to the full 800.
This time, being in the shop space with the time to work on the cells, I actually did a much better job of going through all the cells and balancing them perfectly. So they should be good for the long haul. So as we mentioned, these things that broke, while it happened, we had no time to fix them on our bus because we were building the new bus. We found things we really liked in the new bus, and once that was done, we brought them over to our bus. So a couple of those things were adding the inverter charger, which allows us to have shore power, which we didn't originally put into this bus because it's something we rarely use. But as soon as we had done it on the other bus, we thought this is really nice to have in case of emergency, or if you're in an area that has no sun for a long period of time, you kind of need it. It doesn't matter how much battery and solar you have. If there's no sun, you're going to need to find another way to charge.
We almost never use shore power, which is why we didn't originally install it in our bus. But with our battery cells breaking down several times and reducing capacity that we had to just run our daily items, it kind of made us realize that, things happen, especially when you're out on the road, you don't have any resources, or you just have the tools you brought with you. So we realized that if something were to really happen, it's a great idea to have shore power and to at least have the option of getting a campsite and plugging in a pinch. Because if our entire power system melted down and we couldn't use anything, now we can go pay, $20 for a campsite, plug in, and at least be able to figure out the problem, start fixing it, diagnose what's going on, instead of just sitting in the middle of nowhere with no power.
Yeah, we had 4 years in the van. We never plugged the van in once. Kind of in retrospect, though, our power usage in that van was far less than what we do in here. We didn't have a fridge that ran on power, so that alone was like, okay, that's an essential you need, but it's not drawing power. So that just frees you up a ton. Everything else after lights and a water pump is kind of a luxury. So now when you plug the bus into shore power, it both charges the batteries and also bypasses and powers everything in the house. Similar to how like any RV is set up, the nice thing with the inverter charger is it does it automatically. You don't have to manually switch anything, which wouldn't be a huge deal, but it is nice to have the option of just, it's got the brains in there to do it. It senses the power source and it just powers you up, charges your batteries, and you can still run everything without even touching the batteries.
Another thing we decided to upgrade was drawer slides. So most of our drawers are a pretty reasonable size. They don't get super heavy, but we did have one drawer that's underneath or kind of to the side of our kitchen sink, and it holds a lot of our heavier things like olive oil and different vinegars, like heavy bottles of liquid. It's where we keep our peanut butter, all the heavier pantry items go in there. And so over time of just pulling it in and out and in and out. Oh, are you coming over to say hi? Do you want to sit here?
What Savannah was trying to say, and Mateo will tell you, is the drawer was getting too heavy and starting to sag onto his drawer and he couldn't get his food out. Right, bud?
So Mateo's drawer is right underneath this heavier drawer, and over time of pulling it in and out and in and out, it was sagging onto Mateo's drawer, and he couldn't get his food and water dish open. Usually he can actually pull it in and out himself, and he couldn't anymore. So that was very sad for Mateo. We went back and we upgraded to heavy duty drawer slide. So we paid a little bit more to get heavy duty for that one, for the drawer that holds our pots and pans right here underneath the stove actually. These new ones are the ones we used in our most recent bus build on the pull-out pantry and a few other drawers, and I just love them. They seem way stronger than these ones that were like $20 at Home Depot. So these are a little bit pricier, but I think they're definitely going to hold up better. So we're going to replace these. Also, we went heavier duty for our fridge, and this has been one of the best things that we've done or upgraded in the kitchen. The ones on the bottom of the kitchen that would meet the floor go over top of the rugs now. Before, we would have to move a rug out of the way to be able to slide it in and out. So we eliminated all of that sagging. They're super smooth now. I think the drawer sides are at the rated capacity for what we're actually holding in the drawer. So we took the wheels off of both of the refrigerator slides in that bus that we just built and our own, just raised them up a little bit more and went really heavy duty with 500-pound capacity drawer slides. Another thing we brought over from the most recent build that we did is putting lights underneath the bed, onto the bed frame, because that is our biggest storage area. And we put those lights in the new bus because we realized we couldn't see anything.
No, it's horrible.
Under the bed in our own bus. That's why we added it to the new one. So once we were done with the new bus, we decided we had to put lights under our own now because we were so jealous of how you could see everything underneath the bed. So we did that. We just used the adhesive kind of strip LED lighting, ran it to a switch that is right above where the faucet and sink is in the kitchen. So now you can just flip that light on. You can see everything that's in the storage area. It is glorious.
Another one of those things we realized very quickly when we started living in the space was the cushions on the couch were not quite cutting it.
When we were building our own bus back in 2020, these cushions were one of the last things that I sewed. And to be honest, we were just completely out of budget. And so the foam that we used for the cushions was a mattress topper, a 4-inch foam topper. And it worked fine for a short time period, but because it's a mattress topper and it was a cheap one at that, it broke down really quickly because it just wasn't rated for upholstery. So when we did the new bus, I ordered really specialty upholstery foam, 4 inches, the same depth as our own. And then once I made those cushions, I realized why people use upholstery foam. It's just much denser, it holds up a lot better. And so after we sold that bus, we were able to buy the upholstery foam for our own bus, and it is so much better. I thought to myself, it's just foam, you're just sitting on it. And then when we finally upgraded to the dense upholstery foam, it was just like a whole new world.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I knew it the whole time we wanted something better, but as soon as it was in the new bus and I laid down, I was like, we have to do this to our bus immediately, and we did. And it's much better. It's just more density, so it's able to hold more weight, and it's going to hold up better over time. One of the coolest and most exciting little upgrades we did do to the bus was we switched our water heater to 12 volt. I'm going to go into this in more detail another time, maybe make a whole video of how you can do it. It's not super difficult if you have the right equipment. But long story short, we have an electric water heater which pulls quite a bit of power. I think it's 1440 watts. Riding high and maybe a little overconfident on the new power system I had built, I thought, no big deal. It's only 1400 watts. I know that's a lot, but it's only going to run for 15-20 minutes at a time, which is true. And the system was more than capable of handling that. But if you're in a situation of maybe you haven't had any sun in 3, 4, or 5 days, you probably don't want to throw something on that's pulling close to 1500 watts of power. I knew I'd maybe get to this at some point. It was a project I wanted to do, but it's just one of those things. I didn't have time. So eventually we finally got to it. And what I did is I upgraded it to a 12 volt heating element. I'll go into it in more detail another time. But what's really cool now is that only pulls 200 watts. And while, yes, it takes longer to heat the water, it's such a low watt pull that you can honestly pretty much run it all the time. What I like to do is use this as a way to store additional power once the batteries are fully charged. You could set it up so it does it automatically. I like having the option of the switch. So I will switch it on during the day once the batteries are full charged, and now I can take that solar power I'm generating and heat this water and have hot water later and not need to pull power from my batteries to make hot water.
Now that the power draw of the water heater is so low, we pretty much just turn it on every day in the middle of the day when we're getting the most sun. So that means that we have hot water daily just to use for dishes because we don't shower every single day to conserve water. And we never had hot water for dishes before. Our entire time of being in our van and now our bus, we did not turn hot water on just to do dishes because it's inconvenient. It took a ton of power. But now that we just have it, it feels like a huge luxury.
Yeah, and it's power that would otherwise just be wasted.
We will have a lot more for you about this 12-volt water heater mod that we did coming up in the future. We're hoping we could do a little video and maybe a downloadable plan about it if you're interested. So if you are, let us know so that we can kind of start working on that if that's something that everybody wants to hear about. We're pretty excited about it, so
Yeah, we love it.
we think it's pretty cool. We've been in our bus 1 year. 1 whole year in this bus that we built. The first bus we built.
Yeah, it's exciting. And it's exciting to actually be back in it again and not just working on the other bus all the time.
When we were building that bus that you saw this summer, we were just kind of existing in our house just to build that one. We were just coming in here to eat and sleep, and all the rest of our time was spent on bus number 2. So it's nice to get reacquainted with our house and spend time fixing it and being intentional about how we're spending our time and just really enjoying it, because we spent so much time and effort to build this bus and to design it and research for it that it's really nice to be enjoying it out in the desert.
All right, that pretty much wraps up the 1 year update of some of the things we've had to fix and things we've chose to upgrade. We're pretty excited about the upgrades and look forward to going more in depth and sharing these things in the future.
A bus build is always a work in progress, and that first year you're really working out the kinks and the bugs. So now that we're past the first year, we're feeling pretty confident. Everything is pretty much how we would like it to be, and we're refining some of the things. But thanks for being with us as we go through this journey. First year is out of the way. Year number 2, here we come.